do this. It's the Real Jonath-In Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonath-In Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X __ Jonath-In Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And of course, 1430 AM as well if you're just cruising around the Indianapolis area on a pretty beautiful day. Nice, sunny, good weather. Get outside, go play some golf, go play some pickleball, something, because it is just a really, really nice day outside today. And let's just be honest, it's a little bit brighter because the Colts won on Sunday. When the Colts win, it just makes the week better. At least in my life, it does. It makes my show easier. You know, people are nicer to me on the internet, all that kind of stuff. It's great. But the Colts were not without their flaws on Sunday, right? Like this is the best time to correct stuff after you win. Okay, it's great to win and then go fix things. They're already in the process of doing that. Shane Steichen opened his press conference yesterday and was like, hey, I made a mistake with the end of the game management. I'm going to fix that going forward. I should have been a little bit more aggressive, right? Which is great. Like, that's what we want to hear from coaches and players after they make mistakes. We want to hear them admit that they made a mistake, and then we want to hear them say that they're going to fix it. And that is exactly what Shane Steichen did yesterday to open his press conference. So hopefully the end of the game, clock management stuff isn't as big of a deal going forward. In Shane Steichen's defense, he hasn't been in very many of those situations as the Colts head coach. It's a lot of, we're down 5. We need a touchdown. So let's go and figure that out. So nice to hear Steichen admit his mistake, and hopefully he doesn't make that same mistake again. Colts won, but there are obviously things that need to be addressed. The red zone offense, what hasn't been very good in these first 2 games. 11 total trips into the red zone for the Colts and only 4 touchdowns in the red zone. That's problematic. That needs to be fixed immediately because that is something that gets you beat. Defensively, there were a lot of issues on Sunday. And my takeaway from the game was the Indianapolis Colts need Charvarius Ward and they need Latu. The Colts held their own in pass defense in the second half. The first half, it felt like the Broncos threw the football whenever they wanted. You know, the box score numbers did not meet the expectation that I had kind of after the game, after I had watched and was like, wow, Bo Nix felt like he completed every single pass. Like, certainly he threw for 300 yards. No, he was 22 of 30 for 206 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Okay. Charvarius Ward and Latu, even though those numbers aren't as bad as I thought that they were going to be, even though 22 of 30s, that's pretty bad for a defense. Even though the numbers weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be for the Colts defense with the passing game, pretty obvious that they desperately need Charvarius Ward and Latu. They were both clearly missed on Sunday. Charvarius Ward wouldn't have been flagged as often as Xavier Howard was in the first half. PFF, they rank players, every week, and they give grades and all that kind of stuff. Xavier Howard was ranked, he had, according to PFF, the worst performance of any cornerback in the NFL on Sunday. He was incredibly handsy, pass interference, holding, illegal contact, and all of them were valid. Every single one of them should have been called. Okay, the one on Courtland Sutton where Courtland Sutton never really turns around to make a play on the ball, didn't even know that the football was coming. Doesn't matter if you watched the broadcast. They, Gene Steratore or whoever the rules guy is for CBS laid it out. He was like, yeah, that's still pass interference, even though he didn't turn around. Like, you can't just grab guys like that. So Javarius Ward needs to come back. Xavier Howard had a great week 1 against Miami. Tua didn't throw the football to his side of the field, which was very surprising, but that's the reality of what happened. Sunday, it felt like the Broncos were like, we're going to attack Xavier Howard. And he couldn't hold up. He didn't hold up. It was bad, the stuff that we saw from Xavier Howard in that game. Now, to Chris Ballard's credit, Mekhi Blackmon was on the other side. I thought he played really well. I didn't hear his name called. And if you play on the offensive line, or if you play corner, and I don't hear your name, that is a good thing. That is a really good thing. All right? If I do hear your name, it needs to be because you had a pick, and that obviously didn't happen for Blackmon, right? He just showed up. He did his job. That's worth, to me, that's worth a 6th-round pick, having a guy who can come in, hopefully, for only 1 week to kind of fill the Javarius Ward gap and play well enough for the Colts to win. So, good move by Chris Ballard in the offseason, going out and making that trade for Mekhi Blackmon from the Minnesota Vikings. So, very important that he was good. With that being said, Javarius Ward makes everything easier on everybody because he's your best cover corner. You know, you can stick him on Cortland Sutton, who, to be fair, didn't really have a big game against the Colts. Obviously, he drew the pass interference on Xavier Howard. Outside of that, 1 reception for 6 yards, only 4 targets. Not a big day, but still, with Javarius Ward, you know, you can put him on the opposition's best receiver and feel pretty good about it. He's going to cover really well, which gives your defensive line an extra 0.2 of a second to maybe get a sack or maybe hit the quarterback while he's throwing. He just makes things easier on the secondary, and he makes things easier on your defensive line, right? Because he gives them just a little bit extra time to get home. Speaking of the defensive line for the Colts, there was no pass rush. None whatsoever. Bo Nix had all day to throw. I mean, like the dude, I mean, he just completely unbothered when he was back there. And when there was pressure, you know, he would escape because he's a very athletic guy, you know, who moves really well. He would just escape and he would make a play. So, I mean, man, it's just bad, the pass rush. And to be fair, there's 2 reasons for that. One is the Denver Broncos do have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. I mean, it is truly one of the best. It was the best offensive line in the NFL last year. Or that's probably a bit of a stretch. It was the 3rd best offensive line in the NFL last year behind Detroit and Philly. Okay, they run block well. The pass protection, as you saw on Sunday, is as good as anyone else in the league. So that's part of why Bo Nix had a good day. All the time in the world, no Javarius Ward, and then no pass rush for the Colts. And while that's obviously a bad thing, I do think that it's a good sign that you could tell that Latu wasn't on the field. Kwity Paye, Samson Ebukam, Tyquan Lewis, we're not getting it done. And to Latu's credit, you could tell that he was on the field against Miami. And then you could feel his absence against Denver. That is usually the sign of a good player. And so that gives me a little bit of hope that Latu is going to pan out, even though he clearly hasn't yet. And this is concerning. JT Tuimoloau didn't play a snap again. Second round pick for the Colts out of Ohio State. And that's a really concerning thing because he was supposed to be a guy who could kind of help provide some depth, you know, behind Latu and behind Kwity Paye. So hopefully the hamstring for Latu isn't too serious because the Colts clearly missed him on Sunday and they clearly need him. And hopefully, you know, Javarius Ward is able to come back from the concussion this week. Shane Steichen said yesterday to open his press conference that Latu and Charvarius Ward are both progressing really well. So I think there's a little bit of hope that they're both going to play this week. Doesn't mean that they will. I don't know if they need them to beat the Titans, but it would just make me feel a little bit better. It just would. Felt like Calvin Ridley had some really nice games against the Colts last year. So maybe, you get Charvarius Ward out there, then, you feel a little bit better about Calvin Ridley not going crazy again against this Colts team. So hopefully they can both get out there. And this needs to be addressed. Chris Ballard, I complimented him earlier, going out, getting Mekhi Blackmon for a 6th-round pick from the Vikings, paid off in week 2, played really well, filling in for Charvarius Ward. Now, here's the thing. Chris Ballard, I appreciate his dedication to the trenches. I appreciate his ability to go find really good offensive linemen outside of the first round. Braden Smith, 2nd-round pick. Matt Gonsalves, 3rd-round pick. Tanner Bortolini, 4th-round pick. Bernard Raymond, 3rd-round pick. That's really hard to do. It's very, very impressive work from Chris Ballard in that regard. But the other side of the trenches, the defensive line, it's not great. Chris Ballard's resume on that, it's got to be fixed. He needs to start signing and trading for edge rushers as opposed to trying to draft them. Okay? I'm a big believer. You have to know what you are good at. Bill Belichick was terrible at drafting wide receivers. Okay? He was bad at it. And at some point, if you're bad at something, it is okay to give up. Okay? Like, it's okay to give up if you're not very good at something. Okay? Like, as someone who's a terrible cook, just not very good, I can do very basic things. Okay? Like, for example, I made spaghetti last night. It was edible. It would have been better if my wife had made it, though. It's just the reality of it. Okay? So, when you're not good at something, you should just stop doing it. Okay? One of the downfalls of Bill Belichick was he wouldn't trade or sign wide receivers in free agency. For some reason, he was just committed to drafting them over and over and over again. Chris Ballard, I think it's time to accept that he's just not very good at drafting edge rushers. Like, there's a lot of good edge rushers in the NFL. Okay? Like there are a lot of them. Like, it seems like it seems like almost every team in the NFL has at least like one good edge rusher. At least one. Like you start at the top of the league, you got your Myles Garrett's and Brian Burns in New York's a really good player, and Byron Young for the Rams, and also Jared Verse, and Micah Parsons in Green Bay, Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. in Houston, Trey Hendrickson, obviously. Dorrance Armstrong's had a really good start to the year in Washington. Kyle Van Noy in Baltimore, led them in sacks last year with 12.5. The Niners have Nick Bosa. The Bills have Joey Bosa. Cameron Jordan's still doing it in the NFL for the Saints, and Kayvon Thibodeau also in New York with the Giants. And you can just kind of keep going. Leonard Floyd in Atlanta. Like, you just kind of keep working through it. And like I said, there's a lot of good edge rushers. And then you get to the Colts, and it's like this team has poured a lot of draft capital into the edge rusher position, and it hasn't panned out. Latu, I'm not going to include him on the list of guys that haven't panned out for Chris Ballard because he still might. We don't know. All the advanced stats say that he's going to be really good, but at some point he has to be really good. And then you go through the guys that Chris Ballard has drafted. Kwity Paye. He is the definition of an average edge rusher in the NFL. 8 or 8.5 sacks a year and a good run defender, but you never notice him. Daiwa Dangbo's not playing for the Colts anymore. Tyquan Lewis is a backup. Terrell Basham barely played. Okay, all 4 of those picks came in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. Latu hasn't gotten off to a good start. JT Tuimoloau hasn't played a snap in 2 games. And in game 1, you won 33-8. Game 2, your best pass rusher didn't play. And you couldn't get Tuimoloau in there just to give Tyquan Lewis or Samson Ebukam a break. That dude was a second round pick. He was a top 50 pick in the NFL draft. Highly recruited coming out of high school. I mean, come on now. At some point, JT Tuimoloau has to contribute for the Colts. It's very concerning that he hasn't played in these first 2 weeks. Zach Hicks, he's going to join the show at 11, as he does every Tuesday during the NFL season. But at some point, that guy has to produce for the Colts, especially this season where the defensive line doesn't look great through 2 games and the linebackers look even worse. Even if JT Tuimoloau, even if the reasoning to get him on the field is he's a good run defender, hey, let's do it. Because the Colts run defense, not very good. Okay? Colts run defense, not very good. Pass rush is, I don't know if it's worse. It's not very good either. Okay? Now, they're going to have an opportunity to put up some numbers on Sunday, even though I don't really mind the Titans' offensive line. I think their issue is they just have wide receivers who don't really seem to get open. But Peter Skoronski can play. J.C. Latham didn't play Sunday, but he might be back. We'll see. Center was a 3rd-round pick out of LSU. The left side of the offensive line they addressed in free agency. There might be an opportunity, though, for the Colts to, pass rush to kind of show up a little bit more against the Titans. We'll see if they do or not. There's 2 guys, though, that I fully expect to show up for the Colts. One, kind of a given, and he's had a major impact on the Colts this season. The other guy is a guy that people had major questions about last year, and since he did something that was borderline unforgivable, he has answered the bell at every turn. I'll tell you who those 2 players are in 4 minutes.
it's in today's sports world, it's here. The real Jonath-IN Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonath-IN Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X _ Jonath-IN Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. And it's a beautiful day. Did you stay up last night to watch not only the first Monday Night Football game, Texans lose to the Buccaneers, they fall to 0-2 on the season, but did you also stay up to watch the Chargers play the Raiders? I hope you did. There's a soft launch for something I'm going to do a little bit later in the show. The Chargers might be the best team in the AFC. Not saying that they are, but if you told me that they were, I'd be like, yeah, I get it. That defense is really good. Justin Herbert off to a great start to begin the season. So hopefully you stayed up to watch that Chargers team play because they look really good to open the season. So back to the Colts. There's two guys for the Colts that were so good on Sunday, and one of them is Cam Bynum. The dude is just an absolute baller, and I think that he's really kind of helped shift the culture of the Indianapolis Colts. Here was Shane Steichen after the game on Sunday talking about the play that Cam Bynum made.
That was huge. That's a big momentum swing when you get the takeaways like that. Hell of a play by him. I thought he didn't get touched at first from the sideline. I'm like, get up and go. What do we? And they're like, no, he's touched. I'm like, all right, we're good. But it was a hell of a play by him. Obviously, he brings great energy every single day to the practice field on game day, and he works his tail off. He's out doing extra all the time, jugs machine, you name it. And obviously, he's got 2 picks already this season, so it's big.
Shane Steichen right there talking about Cam Bynum. And, his play on the field's been good. 2 picks already. The first one against the Dolphins. Big interception there against the Broncos because the Colts weren't going to stop them. Shout out to Lou Anarumo on that pick. Week 1, you could clearly see all of the Lou Anarumo stuff. I think this last week against the Broncos is a little bit tougher to be more exotic because you don't have your best corner or your best edge rusher. And so it's just a little bit tougher to trust your guys in coverage to be able to cover long enough to change the picture and to do all of those things. So I think that's part of why we didn't see him be as exotic as he was week 1 against Miami. With that being said, Cam Bynum, the interception does not happen without Lou Anarumo. If you go back and you watch the play, the Colts showed pressure. They pulled out. Bo Nix rushed the throw. When you rush your throw, it usually goes high because you release it a little bit earlier. And when you release early, you sail. That's just kind of how it works. And so he sails it. Cam Bynum's there. He dives, makes the pick. Huge play, sets up the game-winning drive for the Indianapolis Colts. So that was obviously big in terms of Sunday. But the impact of Cam Bynum goes way beyond just Sunday. The Colts have been bad for the last few years. And if the winning continues, a lot of it is going to have to do with Cam Bynum and his ability to kind of help shift the culture for the Colts. When people talk about Cam Bynum, they talk very little about his physical talent and his ability to help them win football games. And that is not an indictment on those things. It is a compliment to the energy that he brings. When people talk about Cam Bynum, the energy and how infectious he is always something that is mentioned when they talk about him. And when you have a Colts team that had been pedaling around in the mud for 4 years, you need personalities like Cam Bynum's to help shift your culture. A guy who can just kind of come in and uplift everybody and make them feel a little bit better about themselves and help them buy into everything. It also helps that he does extra, according to Shane Steichen. You have to have guys like that on your team. Okay? It is so important to have leaders like that in your locker room. To go from Zaire Franklin, who seemed a little full of himself and a bit much, to go from that leading your defense to a guy in Cam Bynum who's just a positive dude who makes everyone want to be there. Like, that is a very important thing for a team. And then you throw in the fact that he's a good player. 2 picks in 2 games. Both of them were in big spots, especially the one on Sunday. Once again, doesn't happen without Lou Anarumo showing pressure the way that he was. Okay, Cam Bynum, very good tackler out in the open field. Been very impressed with that from him as well. If the Colts continue to win games and they continue to turn it around, then, I mean, very, very hard not to like where this Colts team's going. And Cam Bynum is going to be one of the big offseason acquisitions that played a major role in the shift of the Colts going from a losing middle of the road franchise to one that is all of a sudden potentially going to win the division. Obviously, they're in great shape after the Texans fall to 0-2 after Baker Mayfield gets it done on Monday Night Football in primetime. Like that I love Baker Mayfield, man. I don't know how you don't like that guy. Just tough and competitive and runs his mouth and is just all about it. Like there's some quarterbacks that they operate like they're above football players, if that makes sense. They don't really talk trash. They just kind of do their job and they're kind of stoic and they just kind of move on and nothing really bothers them and they don't get fired up. Not Baker Mayfield, man. That dude gets fired up and it's awesome. The Colts schedule, though, going forward, man, they've got like a 4-week window where it's really tough. So obviously this week they're on the road, first road game at the Titans, who are 0-2. Definitely a game where it looks like the Colts should win. Okay, because the Titans just don't look very good to start the season. That's just the reality of it. And then they've got a tough 4-week stretch where they play at the Rams. The Rams are 2-0. That's a really good football team. They beat the Texans week 1, 14-9. They just kind of find a way to make it happen. Their defense is very, very legit. Obviously, it's Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and Kyron Williams and a good offensive line. So they're going to score points. Like, that's going to be a really tough week 4 game for the Colts. And then they get the Raiders at home, who I know didn't look great last night, but that's still a good, solid football team in Las Vegas. Okay, well coached. Geno Smith's a good quarterback. Ashton Janty's a good running back. Brock Bowers at tight end is tough. Jacoby Myers, good wide receiver. The defense, Max Crosby obviously leading the way there. So Vegas, like, that's not an easy game. Very winnable, but not an easy game. And then they get the Cardinals at home, and you hear that, and you're like, it's just the Cardinals. The Cardinals are 2-0, and they look like a legitimately good football team. The issue with the Arizona Cardinals is, can Kyler Murray stay healthy? The answer to that question is usually no, just because he's small. But if he is healthy, like that's a really tough game. And then they're at the Chargers, who I said to open the segment might just be the best team in the AFC. So that 4-week stretch, really important. They need to beat the Titans on Sunday. They need to start 3-0. Just makes that 4-week stretch a little less daunting than how it currently looks, because there's currently 3 teams that are 2-0 in that 4-week stretch. So that's coming down the chute. Going to be very important for the Colts to hopefully just go 2-2 in that stretch. I mean, if you're 5-2 through 7 games, very hard to complain about that. So very excited for the rest of the Colts season, but need to improve to 3-0 this week against the Titans. Now, there's another guy for the Colts who, through the first 2 weeks, has been so good. It's been so impressive just watching that guy play football. And it's Nick Cross. Last year, before the season starts, he makes this grave mistake of, for some reason, tackling Josh Downs when they were doing no contact 7-on-7 or light contact 7-on-7. Don't take guys to the ground kind of a thing. And to be fair to Nick Cross, Josh Downs is tiny, man. Like you have to make an effort to not let him hit the ground. You know what I mean? So Nick Cross, man, he does that last year. And all he's done from that moment forward is just played really good football. He's gotten so much better playing strong safety. He is the Colts' best. He's their best tackler. Okay, like when Nick Cross comes down from that safety spot, I fully expect for the tackle to be made no matter who has the football. He has improved so much from his rookie season. And I know that we give Chris Ballard a really hard time for some of the guys that he's drafted in the secondary. But you got to tip the cap here. Nick Cross, a third-round pick, was rough those first couple of years, but he's figured it out. He's gotten better. Once again, he's the Colts' best tackler. He's, had some struggles in coverage last year. Not these first 2 weeks. He's been very good in coverage for the Colts the first 2 weeks of the season against the Dolphins. I don't think he was even targeted. And then he had a couple big third down pass breakups against the Broncos on Sunday. So he's improved. The secondary does seem to be the strength of this Colts defense to start the season between Cam Bynum, Nick Cross, obviously on the back end of the defense. And then when Javarius Ward is healthy, he's the best player on this Colts defense. They just need for that pass rush to come along a little bit. If Latu can just be kind of a guy, can you get to 10 sacks on the year? Then, you're going to start feeling really good about this Colts defense. I don't think the feeling around the linebackers is going to change just because, Joe Bacci plays hard, tackles well. Don't think he's great. Same goes for Zaire Franklin. One of the really interesting things about the Colts defense through 2 weeks, there's not like one or two tackle guys. Like last year, if you looked at the Colts box score, it'd be like Zaire Franklin had 12 tackles, Nick Cross had 9, and then DeForest Buckner had 3. And then that's it. When you look at the Colts now, it's like their leading tackler is Nick Cross, and he only has 6 tackles. Or their leading tackler is Joe Bacci, and he has 5 tackles. It's much more spread out. It's much more even. I'm sure that's a scheme adjustment thing with Lou Anarumo, but I think that bodes well for the Colts going forward. I think that'll keep guys healthy just because they're not involved in as many collisions. And I think it also keeps guys fresh. Like when you're having to make 13 tackles in a game, when you go to make tackle 10, I feel like you're less likely to make the tackle just because you're tired. Like you're just a little more worn down than what you would be. So some good stuff from the Colts defense, some stuff that obviously needs to be fixed. But I think that Latu and Javarius Ward, when those guys come back from their injuries, that'll hopefully address some of the issues. We'll talk to Zach Hicks about that when he joins the show at 11 o'clock. When we come back, 4 minutes. It's not a new segment. I've done it before. It's just been a while. We're going to do a little Jonath-In Jonath-OUT with the NFL teams in 4 minutes.
weeknights at noon. The Real Jonath-In Smith Show. Now, this is Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonath-In Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X _ Jonath-In Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts set to join me here in about 20 minutes, and you should join me at Bourbon and Birdies October 4th. It's going to be an awesome afternoon of sipping high-end bourbon and hitting some golf balls. It's our second annual Bourbon and Birdies presented by Payless Liquors. It'll take place at Back 9 Golf and Entertainment. It'll be a great day of sampling incredible bourbon, hitting golf balls, eating food, and hanging out with some awesome people. Burned by Rock Patel, Indy's Best Cigar Lounge, will also be on site. Tickets are on sale now at indiesportsticket.com. Or you can text Bourbon to 317-228-1430 to buy tickets as well. Once again, that is Bourbon to 317-228-1430. Colts are 2-0 for the first time since 2009. And 2-0 is such an interesting record because I think you can be 2-0 and be bad. And I think that you can be 0-2 and be really good. Like, who did you play those first 2 weeks? And so I did this last year. I'll probably do it every year that I'm on the air. Jonath-In, Jonath-OUT on 2-0 teams. Are they actually good? Let's start with the Indianapolis Colts. I am Jonath-In on the I'm not gonna say every time. That's gonna get annoying. I'm in on the Colts. Okay. Aside from their final drive against the Broncos, you can't complain about the offense. Okay. They've punted once. Okay. And you say, Jonathan, what are you talking about? They've punted. No. They punted once against the Dolphins. It got wiped off the board for running into the kicker, and then the Colts went and scored. Okay. Like, they have looked so good on offense. Daniel Jones has been great to start the season. I need more data before I say that he's good. And if he, reverts back to the mean a little bit to what he was in New York, you can always go run the football. Okay? That is something that is always going to be in the Colts bag with Jonathan Taylor and this offensive line. So you have to like the offense. Lou Anarumo has had a very positive impact on the defense. I don't know if the defense is good, but I think that the defense is manageable. It is survivable given how well the offense has been playing. Okay. And if Daniel Jones's life continues to be made easy by Jonathan Taylor and the run game and the play calling from Shane Steichen, then they'll continue to be good. No reason to think that they don't go into Nashville this Sunday and win. With that being said, division games are always tough. They're always tough. So I don't expect for the Colts to cruise in there and win by 3 touchdowns or anything like that. I do expect for the game to be tough, but Colts should win that game. The Bills, obviously, I'm in on the Bills. Like, they're good enough to win the Super Bowl. They crushed the Jets. And the comeback against the Baltimore Ravens speaks for itself. Down 15, 4 minutes to go, and you win. It's crazy. It's insane. Only Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes can do that. Okay, so obviously I'm in on the Bills. If you're not in on the Bills, then you don't know what you're talking about. The Bengals, I'm out on the Bengals. Okay, and when I say in or out, in is I think they're a good football team. Out, I don't think they're as good as the 2-0 record says, and I wouldn't be surprised if they miss the playoffs. And for the Bengals, the reason why I'm out, I think it's pretty obvious. Joe Burrow's done for 3 months. Like, that's kind of a problem. Like, I get it with Jake Browning, 2023. He comes in. The Bengals are 5-5. They finished the year 9-8. And, they lose a tiebreaker. And because of that tiebreaker, they miss the playoffs. But it's a bad offensive line with the exception of Ted Karras. Great center. And it's a bad defense. Okay? Trevor Lawrence just decided to turn the football over a lot on Sunday, and the Bengals were able to get away with a win. Their schedule is really tough. Like these next 4 games, wouldn't be surprised if they lost all 4. They're at Minnesota. They're at Denver. They get the Lions at home, and then they're at the Packers. If we looked up in a month and they were 2-4, I would not be surprised in the slightest. Okay, so I am out on the Bengals simply because Joe Burrow got hurt. Chargers, I'm in. If you asked me who the best team in the AFC was, I'd probably say the Bills or the Ravens. I think if you asked the majority of NFL fans that question, they would say the same thing. Bills or Ravens. But if you said it was the Chargers, I'd be like, yeah, maybe. I won't argue. Like that, they look really good. Okay? They had the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL last year. Okay? They gave up like 15 points a game. And they were in the same division as the Broncos. Bo Nix, who threw 36 touchdown passes, set the rookie record for touchdown passes thrown at home in a rookie season. All right, and then you got Mahomes and the Chiefs in that division as well, and they led the NFL in scoring defense, and their defense looks elite once again. Right, holding the Chiefs to 21 points in Week 1, holding the Raiders to 0 touchdowns, 9 points last night. Like that Chargers team's really good. Justin Herbert, he's rolling to start the year, making every right decision, making big plays in the fourth quarter. Dude, he looks awesome to start the season. So absolutely, I am 1,000% in on the Chargers. I would bet them today to win the AFC West. The Packers, obviously, I'm in. Everyone's in on the Packers right now. Everyone's loving the Jordan Love, the Jordan Love stuff, and Micah Parsons is there, and they look good. And they've got 2 really good wins. Like they crushed the Lions, and then they just crushed the Commanders. The defense looks dominant. Jordan Love looks really good through 2 weeks. They're running the football. Matt LaFleur's dialing it up, getting all those receivers involved, and like that Packers team, so good. Probably the best team in the NFL through 2 weeks, but it's a long season. Things change. Teams get better. Guys get hurt. Guys regress. It happens all the time. So early on in the year, hard not to love the Packers. 49ers, out. I still don't believe. I said, Jonathan, they're 2-0. How do you not believe in Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers? I do believe in Kyle Shanahan. Okay? Like that guy's one of the best coaches in the NFL. What I don't believe in is their ability to stay healthy. Don't believe in that at all. Brock Purdy's hurt, could come back this week, could also not. Okay, Trent Williams, oldest left tackle in the NFL. Christian McCaffrey gets hurt every year. George Kittle is already hurt. It's problematic. I don't trust their health. They're going to have more issues as the year progresses. And this division isn't easy. Also, like they didn't look great these first 2 weeks. Like against Seattle, if Kobe Bryant could just reach out and catch a football, then they lose that game. And then they beat the Saints. By 5. Now, this week, they're going to play Arizona, who's a really good football team. More on them in a moment. And then they get Jacksonville, who's better than they were last year. Still like them over 7.5 wins. And then they're at the Rams, and then they're at Tampa Bay. Like these next 4 weeks are tough. If we look up and they're 3-3, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. I'm out on San Francisco. I just don't trust this team to be healthy. The Eagles, obviously, defense not as good, lost quite a bit, but the offense is still incredibly potent. Best offensive line in football. Jalen Hurts just continues to just do enough to win, and that's ultimately all that matters for them. Okay, so really like, obviously, the Eagles, Saquon Barkley, best running back in the NFL, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, arguably, the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. The defense, it's young. It is, but there's still a lot of talent on that side of the ball. Zach Bond at linebacker, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, right? They drafted Will Campbell out of Alabama this last year. Like there's a lot to like on that Eagles defense. They're just a little young. This is where Vic Fangio comes into play. He's as good as they come when it comes to defensive coordinator. So in on the Eagles, without a doubt, that's not a hot take. Cardinals, I'm in. I am absolutely in on the Arizona Cardinals. John, I can't pronounce your last name in the YouTube chat, says he's not sure about Arizona. That's fine. I'll be honest. I'm not sure either, but it's not because I don't like the team. That is not what it's about with the Arizona Cardinals. My issue with them is Kyler Murray. Okay, and it's not because I think Kyler Murray is a bad quarterback. I would take Kyler Murray over a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL. I probably like Kyler more than a lot of other people do. Okay, I know that. It's the short 5'8" guy in me. I grew up like a lot of kids. Like at one point in my life, I wanted to be an NFL quarterback, and my dad was like, "Jonathan, you're too short, man." And now Kyler Murray, runs around like a toddler who stole somebody's phone every Sunday. And it looks so good whenever he does it. And I'm jealous. It makes me feel good for all of the short guys out there. Okay? But it does make me nervous to bet on Kyler Murray because he tends to get hurt. That's the reality with him. And it is undoubtedly a size thing. But I like Jonathan Gannon. I think he's a really good head coach. I really like the defense. Josh Sweat, a guy who should have won Super Bowl MVP last year, really good player. Calais Campbell is still playing football at the ripe age of 57. But he's got 3 sacks already. Like he's having a really good start to the season. He's still got some stuff left there in the tank. Darius Robinson, good edge rusher opposite of Josh Sweat. I like the linebackers. Zabin Collins, drafted him out of Tulsa a couple years ago. Good player. I like Mack Wilson as well. Will Johnson was a guy who, before last college football season, he was supposed to be like a top 10 pick, played corner at Michigan. He ends up falling to the second round because he didn't want to test. Sometimes guys are just good at football, and I think you should draft guys who are just good at football, like Will Johnson, having a really strong start to his rookie season at corner. Budda Baker, arguably the best safety in the NFL. A lot to like with the Arizona Cardinals on the defensive side of the ball. If Kyler Murray stays healthy, this is a playoff team. Even if he doesn't stay healthy, Jacoby Brissett, he can step in and get it done for you if he needs to. Obviously, the weapons on offense, there's a lot to like. James Conner, 30 years old, a running back, still doing it, still physical, running the football. Marvin Harrison Jr., I get kind of overshadowed by Malik Neighbors last year. Still had a really solid rookie campaign. Zay Jones, nice little gadget guy. Trey McBride's one of the 5 best tight ends in football. It's a really good offensive line on top of it. Telling you, Arizona Cardinals, if Kyler Murray can stay healthy, they are a playoff team. The final 2-0 team, the Los Angeles Rams. They're good enough to win the Super Bowl. I said that before the year, flirted with the idea of taking them to win the NFC, and then Matthew Stafford just decided to not practice at all during training camp, and that kind of scared me away a little bit. Okay, so I do like the Rams. I'm obviously in. I like them more than Arizona. Like if I had to pick a team to win that division, I'd pick the Rams. Cardinals to finish second right now. Yeah, like I said, the Rams, they're good enough to win the Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford just has to stay healthy. Okay, they crushed the Titans last week, and then they beat a good Texans team. I know the Texans are 0-2, but they beat a good Texans team in week 1 to open their season. So hard not to like the Los Angeles Rams and everything that they've got going on. It's McVay, it's Puka Nacua, it's Jared Verse, Byron Young also coming off the edge. Just a really good football team on both sides of the ball. So that is your Jonath-In Jonath-OUT on your 2-0 teams in the NFL. There's always a couple frauds in there, and I think that we've sniffed them out with the 49ers and the Bengals. Everyone else, I think it's pretty fair to like them. If you have your reservations about the Cardinals, I get it. I have no reservations about the Colts. They're a good football team. Hopefully it continues this week against the Titans. Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts is set to join me in 5 minutes, 11 o'clock every Tuesday, as he does during the Colts season. And it should be another fun one because the Colts are good, which is awesome. Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts when we come back in 4.5 minutes.
do this. It's the real Jonath-IN Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the real Jonath-IN Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X, __ Jonath-IN Smith. Follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM. Today's show sponsored by or brought to you by, whatever words I'm supposed to say there, Holiday World. Get down there, make some memories. They're doing some awesome Halloween-themed stuff coming up. You don't want to miss it. Get down there, have a good time with your family, make some memories, and just have a blast, which is all that can really happen when you go to Holiday World. And that's all you can have. That's all that's going to happen this year with the Colts. Like, you're just going to have a blast every time you watch them. Apparently, they're never going to punt. Joined by Zach Hicks. Zach from Locked On Colts. Sorry, man, I'm a little flustered right now. I don't know why. I think it's just because I'm so surprised at how good the Colts are to start the season. How surprised are you, not only at the fact that they're starting 2-0, but also just at how good they've looked?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially the offense, right? Because we think about the offense last year, and even if you want to go back to the Gardner Minshew season where they got like those 20 points like every single week, but sometimes they really had to like crawl to 20 points and just get, put everything out there that they could to get there. Everything feels so much easier for them this year. And honestly, people are talking about with this Colts offense, like, oh yeah, regression's going to come. Like, they're not going to be this productive moving the football every time. But for me, I don't know if we're going to see much regression on the scoreboard, because for everything you want to say about like a negative regression coming for how good they've been on first and second down and how effective they've been throwing the ball and moving the ball, you can also say that there could be some positive regression coming for how bad they've been in the red zone. So like, yeah, maybe they won't move the ball this effectively all year. Like, I'm assuming they're going to punt at some point this season, but I expect the red zone offense to at least get better. So even if like their tendency to reach the red zone drops a little bit, if they can just get their red zone offense to being like top 15 instead of, I mean, gosh, they got to be like bottom 5 right now, then we're going to still see these points be in the high 20s and low 30s. So I think this Colts offense is pretty legit, and it's kind of what's carried them through 2 weeks. Like, the defense was really good in week 1. Last week was this past week was kind of a struggle, but yeah, this offense looks really legit right now, and credit to Shane Steichen for making his call at quarterback, and that quarterback clearly is the right option for what he wants to do.
Very clearly, Daniel Jones is the right option. And so I do this thing every year, Zach, with 2-0 teams. I call it Jonath-IN Jonath-OUT. And the whole premise is, like, there's always a couple 2-0 teams every year that are a little fraudulent and end up not being as good as that 2-0 start would suggest. And with the Colts, I think they're every bit as good as being 2-0 suggests. And a lot of it has to do with Daniel Jones. I'm just amazed. I feel like he's made one wrong decision through 2 games. He threw like a short little curl route to Michael Pittman Jr. against the Dolphins. Dolphins linebacker jumped the route. He just dropped the pick. Aside from that, I feel like he's made every right decision. The decision-making for me has been the most impressive thing from Daniel Jones in these first 2 games. What has been the most impressive thing from Daniel Jones that you've seen?
Yeah, I think the most impressive thing has really just been that, in these first 2 weeks, the Colts have gone against 2 good defensive coordinators. Like, we can say what we want against Miami about Miami's defense, but their defensive coach that they have there in Miami, I think, is a really smart and talented coach. And then obviously Vance Joseph and that Broncos defense are a really good defense, even if they didn't show it on Sunday. And they were like, hey, we know what the past says about Daniel Jones. You pressure him, and pressure just gets to him. He gets rattled, and he makes bad decisions. And they really brought the blitz these first 2 weeks. I think the Colts are facing through 2 weeks, like a 60% blitz rate against them from defenses. Like, it's insane. The leaders in blitz rates every year are like high 40s. Like, we don't really see teams blitzing at this like 60% rate the Colts are facing. And the Colts and Daniel Jones have really answered the bell. And Jones has gone from this quarterback who collapsed and corroded under pressure in the past to looking like a guy who's thriving under it this year. He's being really confident in getting the ball out to his first read. He's not really going through progressions because he doesn't have to right now. He's just getting hot, or he's, identifying things pre-snap and what he wants to attack. So we're seeing a very different Daniel Jones, a very confident and in-command Daniel Jones, and it's leading to him just being, again, a different player under pressure. Like with the Giants, every single time he faced pressure, you saw him just panic. And that's where the turnovers came in. That's where the incompletions and the inconsistencies came in. But now we're seeing him just deliver big strikes and hang in there under pressure. And I think defenses are going to really have to adjust now going forward and kind of face the fact that he's not the same old Daniel Jones. We have to go for a different path against him. It can't just be, bring 6 guys and you're going to get to him. It might be you've got to sit back in zone coverage and just hope that he makes a mistake that way. But yeah, teams are going to adjust. But as of right now, he's kind of disproving the narrative of what was out there before the season.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. Zach also writes, and he's got a YouTube channel, I believe, just called Zach Hicks. So if you want film breakdown of Mac and Salvez, just go over there. It'll probably be up at some point.
Yep.
You talk about Daniel Jones and how much better he's been under pressure this year. How much of that do you think is just the confidence of playing behind this Colts offensive line compared to the Giants offensive line, who have, Andrew Thomas, who's a really good left tackle, but an offensive line is 5 guys, not just one? How much of the improvement and the confidence is in the fact that he knows that he's playing behind what's been one of the best offensive lines in football to start the season?
Yeah, I think it's a big part of it. This offensive line has been really good with their blitz pickups, with their protections, and with their communication. But honestly, I'd say the bigger part of this is what the Colts are doing pre-snap and how Daniel Jones is adjusting to that. So what we're really seeing is the Colts are using a very high pre-snap motion rate. And, I get this question a lot when I talk about pre-snap motion. Pre-snap motion can be the easy button for quarterbacks, but only if the quarterback is picking up what he needs to pick up with that. So last year, the Colts, I believe they were at, I want to say it was a 22% pre-snap motion rate with Anthony Richardson in his starts. With Daniel Jones this year, it's a 60% motion rate. And that's not to say they were not giving Richardson the tools for success, but it might just been that Richardson wasn't really picking things up that way, the way that Jones is. Because what Jones is doing and what we're seeing is he's using those pre-snap motions to understand what kind of coverage is coming his way. So if they're moving downs across the formation and a guy is following him, then we know that they're going to be in man coverage. And if we're going to have Josh Downs on man coverage, then we know what we have to do. If we are moving motion away from A.D. Mitchell and they're trailing with him again, we know we're going to get A.D. Mitchell on an island that way. If we are moving a guy to one side and nobody trails with him, then we know we got to get 3 levels of attack that way because it's probably going to be zone. So they're doing that to really identify what kind of coverage they can attack, how they can attack it, also getting reads on those pre-snap blitzes and who might be coming. And Daniel Jones, to his credit, has been really smart with how he's processing that information quickly. Every little bit of motion is giving him the information he needs. And as a result, there was a fantasy football site that said that they had a stat that said he threw it to his first read in 97% of the time in week 2, right? And most people will see that and be like, oh, he's just staring down targets. That's not good. But when you are getting all the information you need pre-snap, there's no reason to get to that second read. You know where you're going to attack. So if they're blitzing you at a 71% rate and you're getting the information pre-snap, you don't want to come off that first read. You're looking at that first read and you're saying, hey, I got Downs in man coverage and I'm going to be hot because they're bringing 6. There's no reason to look Downs and look somewhere else and then come back to Downs. It's just, I know I'm going to Josh Downs here. And that's where he's been so effective at eluding pressure, being confident in his pressure, and just getting that ball out quick, is because he doesn't have to think as much back there. He's doing all this thinking pre-snap, and then he's identifying where he's going right there in that little minute of detail he's getting. So credit to the Colts for smashing that easy button for him over and over, but also credit to Daniel Jones for taking that information that's given to him and applying it to the play when it's happening. It's just kind of been a perfect melding of what the Colts want to do and what's working for Daniel Jones.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked-On Colts, talking about the Colts win over the Broncos and Daniel Jones and why things have been made easier for him here in Indy. Really, really good breakdown right there from Zach. There's one area with Daniel Jones that has not been great, and you mentioned it at the beginning, the red zone. And this is where I sound like a hater. I'm not trying to sound like a hater. I think that they throw the football way too much in the red area. I think, I went through it. I won't bore you with all the numbers, but they threw the football significantly more than they ran it in the red zone against the Broncos. I think that's part of the issue. It's tougher to throw the football in that area of the field. What do you think are the issues with the Colts in the red zone?
Yeah, there's a couple issues. One, if we go back to Shane Steichen's first year with the Colts have been a bad red zone team all 3 seasons with him. So there's clearly something on Steichen and Jim Bob Cooter's end that is just not clicking in the red zone. They've never been a highly efficient red zone offense. I think they were 23rd last year. And look, man, we can say all we want about Anthony Richardson, moving the ball effectively up and down the field, but there's no reason you shouldn't be able to punch that ball in the end zone when you had a quarterback like that. You could just, you could dictate whatever you want to do and just run the ball in every single time with Richardson. There's no reason for you to be a bad red zone offense. So I think there is partially the scheme to blame or just the coaching there. They've just always been bad at this. But on top of that, I do think when you have Jones who, and again, this is going to sound like I'm hating on him because any little bit of criticism is bad right now because we're riding that high. But, with Jones, a lot of his success so far this year has come from diagnosing pre-snap where he wants to attack, throwing into spots, and guys being open at those spots, and everything condenses when you get to the red zone. So when you have a quarterback like Jones who feels much more comfortable just throwing it to, just throwing against man coverage or throwing it to open zones where defenses want to run tighter zones in the red zone. So if you really want to fit something in, you have to rip it between 2 or 3 defenders. He's not feeling comfortable enough to really take those chances in the red zone. So you are missing some opportunities there. So I think it's kind of just an overall conglomeration of yes, they're not running the ball enough. Yes, Jones is struggling to really attack those tight zone windows in red zone. And this has been an issue throughout all of Steichen's tenure with the Colts in terms of converting in the red zone. I think the easy solution to this, or an easier solution to this, is just run the ball more, be more creative running the football. Jonathan Taylor has done a great job this year at just creating positive yards on every single run. I think he's only been stuffed in the backfield 2 or 3 times through 2 weeks. So I think you don't really run much of a risk of running the football more towards the red zone, because even if you get into a 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, you can whip out an RPO or an RPR and get that first down and then get back to running the ball. So I do think they want to get out. They should get out of the pass happiness in the red zone and let Taylor kind of just plow them down. So, even if you just get to the 1 yard line, don't worry. Jones will get in with a quarterback sneak afterwards, and we'll get his rushing touchdown totals up in the 30s this year, like Cam Newton did. But I think there are ways to fix this. But as of right now, I just think their pass happy approach and kind of treating the red zone like it's the rest of the field has kind of been the issue. And also we've had 3 fade, not fade throws, but 3 vertical pass throws in the red zone. We got to chill with that. That doesn't work anymore, man. I'm cool with getting one of those to Pierce if you see that he's got a 5'6" corner on him or something, but we don't need to throw jump balls in the red zone. We can do something a little more creative than that.
Yeah, or we can just run halfback dive behind Quentin Nelson and the left tackle that you decided to pay $100 million to this offseason. That also works really well. I will say though, when I was working through that take yesterday, I was it kind of makes sense that they want to throw the football. We've heard Shane Steichen say it multiple times. Once again, joined by Zach Hicks of Locked-On Colts, talking about the Colts win over the Broncos. We've heard Shane Steichen say it. He believes in throwing to get ahead and then running to win. And when you look at 3 of the Colts' best pass catchers, they're all big. Alec Pierce is huge. Tyler Warren's huge. Michael Pittman's a big guy as well. Those to me seem really good, red zone guys that I would want to have, just because, as you said, the windows are a little tighter and there's probably going to be more contested catch opportunities. So it's an interesting thing because even though they are throwing the ball too much, like you would still think that with those guys, they'd be able to have a little bit more success than what they've had.
Yeah, and for me, actually, I would actually go the other route and say, like, what I would do is if I had Josh Downs with the linebacker anywhere near him, like even if it's a zone coverage where they're going to have like two linebackers like squeezing those routes, just throw the ball low to Downs in between them and he'll make a play. Like Josh Downs is always open. Yeah. We saw that this weekend on multiple third downs where the Colts motioned him against man coverage, and it didn't matter if it was Riley Moss, if it was McMillan, Surtain. Like it didn't matter what corner was traveling with him. On third down, he was winning. So treat the red zone like third down, like a gotta-have-it moment. Just isolate Josh Downs, or even if they're going to run zone coverage and not let you isolate him, just squeeze him in between two linebackers and throw the ball low, and he'll make the play. Like, he's one of the best separators and best pass catchers in football. Like, use him in the red zone. He is so athletic, so quick, and so shifty that if you just throw like a quick timing, like you could throw a quick slant, and even if they're running cover two zone where they're going to have two linebackers in that hook zone there, you could run a quick slant if he either crosses the face or gets behind them and throw it low. He's going to make the play. So I don't know. I do think that's one thing I've always had an issue with Steichen and this Colts team, where it's like, look, Josh Downs is great on third down, and they acknowledge that, but he could be special in the red zone as well. It's hard to cover slot guys like in tight spaces like that, because like one shifty step or just one little timing route, he's wide open. And that's all it takes for him. So I would honestly make him the focal point in the red zone. And then, like you said, if you want to do some RPO, like quick slants or something to a Michael Pittman Jr., once Pittman Jr. has inside leverage on a guy, it's hard to prevent him from catching it. Look, Pat Surtain was all over him on multiple catches he had in this game. And it didn't matter because he's so powerful over the middle of the field. So yeah, I'm with you. If you want to throw the football, try to isolate these guys a little bit, get them leverage, and throw with timing. Like, even if the ball is broken up, when you throw with timing, make sure it's a little bit low, so that way you can protect your guys from big hits and protect it from bouncing up in the air, and you run no risk there. But yeah, the Shane Steichen's been calling some fade stuff. I know when he gets into like third and like 10 plus in the red zone, he loves his like 4 verts call. He did that like 4 times in the preseason as well, and I hate it. I really hate it. It kind of works when you have like a big arm quarterback like a Richardson, because you can just like throw it as hard as you can at like a leverage and just hope a guy can go make a play. But with Jones, it just becomes a jump ball in the corner, and it's just not fun. So I think there are better ways to utilize the guys in the red zone if we're going to nitpick here, because between the 20s, it's been beautiful with this offense. But the red zone definitely needs to get better going forward.
Beautiful is the right word. I mean, like, it's been so much fun to watch. Just a nice change of pace from last year to this year, where last year watching the Colts, felt like I was like eating nails, like it's just brutal. Yeah. And this year it's been awesome. Once again, joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about the Colts win over the Broncos and just some of the red zone struggles to start the year. I want to talk about the defense now. How many of their issues can be solved simply by Charvarius Ward and Latu both coming back?
I think a lot of the issues get solved with Charvarius Ward being back, because you just lock down one side of the field with him, and you go from having, like, I don't want to be too harsh on these corners, because look, one guy was traded on cut down day. He was probably going to be a roster cut guy, and the other guy was taking a gap year at 32 years old. So it's hard to be too hard on these guys, but you can survive with 4 really good secondary players and 1 kind of liability on the outside, if that liability is like Howard or even Blackman over Howard. But when you have 3 good secondary players and your 2 liabilities are both playing outside corner, it's just tough, because one of those guys has to be on an island more often than not. And the Colts tried to do that with Howard in this game. They tried to have Howard be the guy on an island, and it was just brutal. It was absolutely brutal. So then they had to really mix up what they were doing in the second half. So having Charvarius Ward back helps a lot. When it comes to Latu, I do think it does help the pass rush a bit, but honestly, my biggest overreaction from this game is I don't think this edge rush room is going to be good enough this year. And that's my biggest concern with this Colts team going forward, because even if we grant like Latu being an average to above average pass rusher, right? Unless he's like that superstar where he's just like a Max Crosby, like TJ Watt, like getting pressure every single play, who else is getting pressure in the edge room? You know, Kwity Paye's just never really been that guy. He can finish sacks, but he can't really create pressure. And then you look at Samson Ebukam just doesn't have the juice this year. That Achilles injury just zapped a lot of his juice. And I mean, you could barely even hear his name called on Sunday. Tyquan Lewis is another older player who's just not really much a pass rusher. And then JT Tuimoloau, like he's a young player who's not really ready for the moment yet. And even in college, he was a better run defender than he was a pass rusher. Like he could finish sacks, but he wasn't like a pure pass rush winner. So honestly, when you're looking at this like pass rush up front, your best guys are Leatu Latu, DeForest Buckner, and then it might be Adetomiwa Adebawore. And he's right. And he's a young guy who's more explosive than refined, but at least he's explosive and fast. But he's only getting 9 snaps on defense in these games. So it's like, who are you relying on to be that third rusher who can actually win a rush? I don't know if the Colts have it. So then when you lose Latu for a game and you're down to just Buckner that can win a rush, and I guess Grover Stewart had a couple where he pushed the dude back, but the Colts had 5 pressures on Sunday, 5 pressures in total in that game. And one of them came on one of Adetomiwa's like 4 rushes. He had 4 pass rushes and had 1 pressure. There was just not enough pressure, and it's hard to blitz when you don't have Ward out there because then you're leaving Howard and Blackman on island. So it was just a tough game. And the problem is too, when you play against Sean Payton, when he smells blood in the water, when he smells a weakness, he's just going to hit that button over and over again. Kind of like how Shane Steichen does on the other side, where like Shane Steichen was mashing those rail routes to Jonathan Taylor and just pinching those poor linebackers who had no clue what they were doing. Sean Payton was just going after Xavier Howard left and right because he knew that was the weak point. So you got to have more talent just to cover up those weak points and disguise things. So Charvarius Ward back will really help the secondary, but I think even with Leatu Latu back, this edge room is going to be kind of rough this season. I hated the bet on Ebukam coming into the season, and it's not looking good so far.
It's not. Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about the Colts' rough defensive performance against the Broncos on Sunday. I'm with you on the Ward stuff. I think he fixes a lot of the issues on the back end. You know, we've talked enough. I was concerned about this defensive line before the year even started. Oh man, I had a question. Okay. I want to go back to something that you said. What is the difference between finishing a sack and like providing pressure? Like you kind of separated those two things. What is the difference?
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at like just technique from these guys, Leatu Latu had this issue last year where he just wasn't finishing sacks. He created a lot of pressure, but wasn't finishing sacks. I think a lot of it is just natural athleticism. You know, we see these guys who have a tendency to finish sacks being able to bend and turn, and these it's so hard for pass rushers because you have to do all this work to get past your guy, and you are approaching the quarterback like it's a stationary target. But these guys are so athletic nowadays. Like even like we're not even talking about like the Lamar Jacksons or the Josh Allens. Like even someone like Bo Nix is really nimble and able to move around. So we saw on Adetomiwa's big rush that he had in the game, he got through there pretty clean and had a free shot on Bo Nix, and Bo Nix just quickly sidestepped him, and Tomiwa went flying by. So it is tough to finish sacks, but I think the key is just coming in control when you have the opportunity. Squaring up your guy like you would any ball carrier and finishing these plays. But, you know, there is value in creating just pressure. But the problem is if you're creating pressure and not finishing sacks, then, you know, you are hurrying up the quarterback, but you're giving him an escape lane, right? If you're coming off the edge hot and past your left tackle, for instance, and you're whiffing on the sack, now that left end is open for that quarterback to escape and create a big play. So finishing sacks is so vital. You know, you got to get these guys on the ground or at least hit them, and disrupt. So if they throw the ball while you're hitting them, okay, you disrupted the play there, but you can't let him get away clean. So I don't care what it is. Like if you have a free shot on the quarterback, grab hold of whatever you can and make sure he's not getting free of that. That is the most important thing you can do. I don't care if you don't finish the sack from there, but at least pull the guy down, grab something, get him down. Don't do what Tyquan Lewis did and punch him out of bounds and get a 15-yard penalty for no reason. but, get this guy on the ground when he has the ball. And if he throws the ball away, it's that. But, yeah, it's a good question because it is tough. You want to value pressures a lot as well, but sometimes pressures where you are whiffing on the sack can be worse for your defense than pressures where, or non-pressures even, where you're keeping the quarterback in the pocket, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about the Colts win over the Broncos. So there's a guy on this Colts defense, Zach. I think he is unsung heroes, probably a bit much. I just think he's been really good through 2 games. Nick Cross.
Yeah.
Last year, he, assists here. He not helps. He, hits Josh Downs during practice. He sprains his ankle. Everyone's mad at Nick Cross because 2 years ago, he kind of struggled. But from that moment forward, it seems like Nick Cross has been, I thought he was good in the run game last year, kind of struggled in pass coverage. But Sunday, I think he's been the Colts' best tackler to start the season. And he's had some good reps in pass coverage as well. What have you kind of seen from Nick Cross in terms of his improvement from last year to this year?
Yeah, Nick Cross has been great, man. Talk about a story, though. Being a player that the Colts moved up in the 3rd round to get, ironically, with the Denver Broncos. They gave up a 3rd round pick. I think that 3rd round pick turned into Riley Moss, who Alec Pierce toasted on that deep route, if we're going down that rabbit hole there. But yeah, they trade up to get Nick Cross, and it takes him a couple years to really crack the starting lineup. And when he does, he becomes everyone's biggest villain prior to the year because he hurts Josh Downs. But he turns out just a really good season last year. 146 tackles, 5 pass breakups, 3 picks. Was a Pro Bowl alternate, so he was like right on the cusp of being a Pro Bowler last year. And I think he's been even better to start this season. I think he's a good player, man. And I don't think the Colts win this game without having 2 quality safeties like they had in this one. Having someone like Bynum who was able to come away with that interception, like just such a playmaker play, getting his hands under that football and coming away with that interception. Like how many safeties do we see drop that pass? Or not drop it, but like don't make that interception. Like when they were showing the replay, I was like, oh, please don't let the tip of that ball hit the ground. And sure enough, he had that all the way. And then Nick Cross, I think it was on the series before that, had 2 consecutive plays that got the Broncos into punting, which was a tackle for a loss on the sweep play. And then he locked up Evan Ingram on 3rd down and forced an incomplete pass. So, these 2 safeties really helped the Colts win the game. And like you said, unsung heroes. I would say they were both the unsung heroes because after the first drive of the second half, the Colts pitched a shutout. In the second, it doesn't feel like it because their defense was still giving up yards. But that shutout in the second half after that first drive doesn't happen without Cross forcing a punt and without Bynum coming with that interception. And then obviously the missed field goal by Lutz. But, they were able to make those plays happen. So, I think Cross for sure has been the unsung hero, where Bynum has been more of the sung hero. We're all singing his praises right now, but this Colts team is not 2-0 without these 2 safeties. These 2 safeties have been the shining parts of this defense so far. And hopefully Charvarius Ward coming back this next week can make more players look better. But I think those 2 safeties have really saved the day for the Colts through 2 weeks.
Totally agree. It's been a lot of fun to watch this team play. So you mentioned earlier how Sean Payton, when he notices a weakness in a defense, he just kind of keeps going after it. Which I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not, because you're very smart and you're usually right on these things. Why didn't he run the football more? I felt like every time the Broncos ran the football, the Colts were in trouble. I felt like they were guaranteed to pick up 5 yards. This
Right.
Colts run defense is just, through these first 2 weeks, it has not inspired a lot of confidence. What do you make of the Colts run defense so far?
Oh yeah, it's gonna be pretty bad this year. If we can make any definitive points about this Colts team through 2 weeks, one is Tyler Warren is pretty darn good. Daniel Jones is better than expected. This offense is going to move the ball. And then on defense, it's the edge rush sucks. The safeties are good. And my gosh, that run defense is going to be brutal. This is why having Charvarius Ward missing a game was bad, because I think the way this defense is kind of drawn up is we're not going to be a good run defense. It's just not going to happen. We are sacrificing run defense to be in nickel and dime more often than not. And our goal is if we can force one negative play early in the possession. So maybe get lucky, shooting a gap or blitzing a safety, blitzing a corner early and knocking that running back down for a loss. That'll get you passing the next 2 plays, and then we can get off the field with our better pass coverage. But yeah, this run defense is going to get bad this year. It's just hard to defend in nickel the way that they have in the run game, especially when teams are coming out in 12 personnel or 22 personnel with some, 21 personnel is what we saw a little bit from the Broncos running some like I form stuff. It's tough with that, and especially when they, will have their nickel corner filling against, play side running plays. It's difficult. You don't want Kenny Moore taking on a fullback in space or taking on a tight end in space like that. So it's going to be a bad run defense for sure. They're going to be in the bottom 10 of the NFL. The goal, though, is to be good enough in pass coverage to where, teams get so much in this analytic mindset where it's like, look, a productive run is 6, 7, 8 yards, and that's a typical yards per attempt average for a quarterback. So statistically, we want to throw the ball more because on average, our quarterback's throwing for 7 yards a pass where, even if we're running all over a defense, our running back is averaging 5 yards a carry. So that's fewer yards right there. So Lou Anarumo was basically making that bet where it's like, look, if you want to keep running the ball on us, that's fine. Eventually you're going to pass though. And once you do, we're going to force negatives. We're going to force turnovers, and we're going to get into our kind of mode here and get you behind the sticks. But I think it's a fine way to attack. I would prefer better run defense for sure, especially come December this year. But I think it's just kind of the way this defense can be played. I think they'll be more aggressive when they are like fully staffed and, early down blitzes to kind of clog those lanes and force negatives in the run game. But they're going to get gashed quite a bit in run defense this year. I certainly guarantee that after these first 2 weeks.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked-On Colts, talking about the Colts win over the Broncos. Last thing for you, and I will let you go. Texans are 0-2. Titans are bad. Jacksonville, I don't know. But the Colts are 2-0. Are the Colts going to win the AFC South?
We can't go too far, man. I've never seen it before.
All right, my bad.
But I will say things are looking like they look like the team with the fewest problems right now. Whereas the Colts offense looks like the best in the division because they just don't have many glaring flaws on offense. Whereas the Texans don't have an offensive line. The Jaguars are still dealing with the highs and lows of Trevor Lawrence. And then apparently whatever the heck's going on with Brian Thomas Jr. this past weekend. I have no clue what happened with him. And then the Titans are trying to break in a rookie quarterback behind a terrible offensive line in a bad offensive system. So this Colts offense has a quarterback and a head coach on the right page, the best offensive line in the division. I wouldn't say it's the best receiver core in the division because, they don't have a Nico Collins or, Brian Thomas Jr., if he figures his stuff out, they don't have that either. But they have really good receivers who complement each other really well. And they all fit this system. So I think the Colts are kind of like a well-oiled machine on offense. If the defense can just get back to, maybe not as dominant as they were against the Dolphins, but just better in pass coverage, then yeah, I think they have a good chance to win this division. There will be some regression and some ebbs and flows and some injuries that hopefully the Colts can avoid. But I think they have a decent shot so far because, look, the Texans don't look unbeatable because the offensive line is so bad. So I think there's a chance. We'll have to see. It's going to be a big season for Shane Steichen and Daniel Jones and the Colts, but I feel better about it now than maybe I've ever felt covering this team since Andrew Luck retired.
Oh, man. Isn't that just such a fun thing to say?
Right? Well, not the Andrew Luck retired part, but since Andrew Luck retired. Yeah, for sure.
It is. Hopefully they keep it. They should keep it going this week. Titans don't look very good, but the division games are always tough. Zach, thanks for your time, man. You were great as always, dude.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
You got it. Zach Hicks of Locked-On Colts. Go follow him on X at Zach Hicks2. Check out his YouTube channel. Go read his writing. He just does really, really good stuff. Really smart guy. When we come back in 4 minutes, more stuff on your 2-0 Indianapolis Colts.
may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonath-In Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonath-In Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X _ Jonath-In Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. Zach Hicks joining us in that last segment, giving us 35 just awesome minutes. He's always good whenever he joins the show, so big shout out to him. As always, you can hear him on the Locked On Colts podcast with Jake Arthur, who frequents the show from time to time as well. People have been asking, and so I will divulge the information. So I had a root canal about a week and a half ago, and it was not good. If you listened to the show last week, you could probably hear me grimace from time to time. If you watched the show, I came in on Friday, and like my face was swollen. It was not good. I am almost all better. I go back to the dentist today. They're going to put an official crown on, or like a permanent crown, I don't know what they're called, on the tooth, and hopefully I am good to go from there. But I'm doing much better. Thanks to everyone who reached out and was asking about it. So I do really appreciate that. Peaches asked who I like in Indiana versus Illinois. And once again, if you want to send questions directly, you can tweet at me at _ Jonath-In Smith over on X, or you can just go over to YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. And you can just hop in the chat, and you can send me stuff that way as well. Peaches, I don't really know. It's in terms of betting the game, I'll talk more about this on Friday when I do all the gambling stuff. It's a firm stay away kind of a thing for me. Just because like I don't know who Indiana is. Like I really want to believe that Indiana is going to be better at football this year than they were last year. Okay, like, I really want to believe that. I just can't believe it yet because the best team they've played is Old Dominion. Okay, you beat Old Dominion, you crushed Indiana State, you crushed Kennesaw State. That's wonderful. I've seen Illinois go on the road to Duke and absolutely dog them. Illinois, several more returners than Indiana. I like the quarterback at Illinois. Not to say that I don't like Mendoza, but like we haven't seen Mendoza play a real Big Ten team yet. Elijah Surratt's still a really good receiver, so that gives me more confidence in the Indiana offense. So I know that Indiana's favored by 4.5. I think that's a bit much because I do really like this Illinois football team. It's going to be electric. First big home game that Coach Cignetti has had to coach. His tough games last year, at Notre Dame, at Ohio State. They were both on the road, so I expect for the stadium to be rocking, and it's going to be an awesome environment on Saturday. I think if I had to pick someone today, which I'll dive into it more throughout the week and give you like a real in-depth prediction on Friday. I would probably take Illinois just because I know more about them than I do Indiana. And if I'm going to bet or predict something, I'm going to take the team that I just know more about. Okay. Here's the important thing for Indiana though. Coach Cignetti needs to win this game because if he loses, things get ugly for him really quickly. Not in terms of like being on the hot seat or anything like that. But if he loses, with how much he has ran his mouth, we figured we'd adopt an SEC schedule. Ohio State sucks. Michigan sucks. Purdue sucks. Just everything that he said. I win. Google me. Right? It's cool. It's funny. It's like we don't beat ranked teams. We kicked the living you-know-what out of them. Said that before he played Notre Dame and got the living you-know-what kicked out of him. Like it's cool and it's fun. But if he didn't win, people are very quickly going to attach the idea that he can't beat good teams to him. Like that will be latched to him as soon as that clock hits 0. Because he got blown out last year by he got blown out last year when they played Ohio State. They got blown out when they played Notre Dame. And if you're an Indiana fan and you're currently doing the whole, they only lost, I forget what the final score was to that Indiana game, but they scored the only 2 touchdowns that they scored that day. And in the final 1 minute and 40 seconds of the game. So, excuse me if I'm not just overwhelmed by that performance from Indiana football. So from just like a narrative standpoint, it is, I think, very important for Coach Cignetti to find a way to win this game. Because if he doesn't, then he's going to be, the butt of a lot of jokes, especially from the SEC people, because the SEC people obviously do not like him after everything that he said in the offseason. So those are kind of my current thoughts on the game. Well, like I said, I'll really kind of dive into it a little bit more before Friday when I do like a full college football breakdown, as I do, because if you're new to the show, I love college football. I think it's really where my love of sports began, sitting at home in my Arkansas Razorback number 5 Darren McFadden jersey, watching the Arkansas Razorbacks lose a lot, because that's what they did, and that's what they still do. Notre Dame fans, I know you're 0-2, but hey, you got my Arkansas Razorbacks coming up on the schedule. You're going to win that one. You've also got Purdue this week, so you will be 2-2 very, very soon, which is just kind of funny. So, anyway, yeah, Peaches, that's kind of what I think about Illinois and Indiana as of right now. So we'll kind of see how that goes whenever the games get here. The Colts, I know not all that I need to know about them, but I know enough to say that the Indianapolis Colts are a good football team and that they're going to continue to win games this year because the offense just looks so good. Okay. Now, they haven't had any crazy injuries yet. Like Quentin Nelson's still healthy. Bernard Raymond's still healthy. You can kind of keep working through it. Like, they don't have any injuries on offense through 2 weeks. What do they look like when guys start to go down? And I say when because that it's going to happen. Someone's going to roll their ankle and miss 3 weeks. Someone's going to break their arm and miss, even more time. Like, it's just the nature of the beast in the NFL. And, we got a little glimpse of what the Colts defense looks like when guys get hurt. And it's not good. It wasn't good before when guys were healthy, but you lose your best corner and your best player on defense, like that is going to result in some issues. You lose your best edge rusher, that is going to result in some issues. So just the health of the Colts is something that is going to continue to be super important all year. I don't think this is a very deep team really anywhere. When you look across the depth chart, like there's depth at wide receiver, and that's really it. Like, if Tyler Warren gets hurt and Mo Alley Cox and Drew Ogletree both become your pass catching tight ends, I think that this offense takes a bit of a hit. Going from Matt Gonsalves to Dalton Tucker, that's a downgrade. Okay, going from Tanner Bortolini to Danny Pinter, like that's a downgrade. Going from Bernard Raymond to rookie Luke Tenuta, 4th round pick, like that's very clearly a downgrade. Excuse me, Jalen Travis, the backup at right tackle, he was the 4th round pick. My bad, but still, like that is clearly a downgrade. And so the health of the Colts is of the utmost importance this year. If they stay healthy, they're going to continue to win games. Okay, like that. It is really that simple, especially on the offensive side of the football. Because look, man, like when you don't punt, you're in really good shape. Defensively, the depth here is non-existent. But then again, the starters aren't great either. So the drop off really isn't that crazy. Like going from Kwity Paye to Tyquan Lewis isn't going to make me lose sleep. Meanwhile, going from Daniel Jones to Anthony Richardson is going to make me lose sleep. Going from Cameron McGrone to Chad Muma or Saguna Luby, not going to lose a ton of sleep there. Just not going to. Sorry. So the defense for the Colts, it's got its issues. They've just got to find a way. They've just got to find a way to just be a little more stable on the defensive side of the football. You know, like I want to think that this Colts team can win a playoff game. This team can certainly make the playoffs. When you start 2-0, you have an excellent chance to do that. But is this Colts team good enough to win a playoff game? I don't know about that. I don't think I'm quite there with them yet. With that being said, if they continue to win the turnover battle, something that they've done, to start the season in both games. Obviously, week 1 they forced 3 turnovers and they don't turn it over once, and then Sunday they force a huge turnover. I mean, just an absolutely huge turnover, because there's no way that the Broncos weren't going to score. There's no way that the Broncos weren't going to score there. Huge takeaway there. And, that's a large part of why they won the game. They're averaging two takeaways per game right now. And I mean, look, if you're going to average that many takeaways per game, then you're in great shape. Colts currently lead the NFL in turnover margin at +4 on the season. And that is, besides injuries, like, that's the most important thing in any game. And it was part of the concern with Daniel Jones coming over from New York. And he just turned the football over a lot. The 1 year that he did a really good job of not turning the football over was 2022, turned the football over 9 times, threw 5 picks, and he lost 4 fumbles. Outside of that, that's the 1 year that the Giants made the playoffs, and they won a playoff game, and then the Giants decided to give Daniel Jones $40 million a year after that. The 1 year he didn't turn the ball over was the 1 year that the Giants had a lot of success. And it's the exact same thing here. Like, the Colts have the weapons for him. If he can just distribute the ball to Tyler Warren and Michael Pittman and Josh Downs and Alec Pierce and A.D. Mitchell, who I thought looked good in limited snaps against Denver, then the Colts are going to be fine. Because those are all talented football players, and I didn't even mention Jonathan Taylor, who's had a real impact both receiving the football and running the football to start the season. So if they can just avoid the turnovers, and this defense can continue to force them the way that they have, then this Colts team's going to be perfectly fine going forward. So very excited for the rest of the year. The Colts should be 3-0. I'm going to see if I can get someone from the Zone in Nashville on later in the week to kind of talk about the Titans and Cam Ward. It's really kind of funny. They've got some of the same issues as the Colts. Their red zone offense might be worse than Indy's. Like, legitimately, every time they're in the red zone, they're kicking a field goal. And part of that's because they've played 2 really good defenses to start the year in Denver and the Rams. Maybe that's part of it, but I don't know how much of the Titans you've watched. I've watched probably 7 of their 8 quarters. Cam Ward looks like a rookie to start the year. Lou Anarumo is hopefully going to keep him looking like a rookie when they play on Sunday. I expect a lot of exotic, coverages, changing the picture pre-snap to post-snap, just trying to make him process as much as possible. So if I had to bet on it, Colts probably force a couple more turnovers against the Titans, and we'll kind of see what they look like going forward after that. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to tune into the Real Jonath-In Smith Show. I greatly appreciate it. No matter how you listened, whether you watched on YouTube, watched on X, listened on the app, listened on 1430, it is greatly appreciated. As always, I'll be back on the air tomorrow, 10 to noon. Zach Pirles of CBS Sports is going to join the show. He asked to come back on because he said that he bet the Colts under 5.5 wins. And when you say that and the Colts start 2-0, like, you have to come back on the show to talk about it. Like, that's just a rule. So Zach Pirles, great guy, does a really good job covering the NFL for CBS. We're going to get to ask him about the Colts starting 2-0. It's going to be a lot of fun. So he's going to join tomorrow at 10:20. The Dan Dockett Show, that is set to come your way next, noon to 3. Dave Rebson is joining the show at 1:05. He's going to talk about the Illinois and IU game. Sean Salisbury is set to join the show as well at 2:30. So the Dave Dockett Show is loaded. I got to run. I got to go get my mouth fixed again, and hopefully for the last time. Thank you again for tuning into the show. Like, subscribe, follow me, __ Jonathan Smith, and I'll talk to you tomorrow from 10 to noon.